welcome to the Austin Forum Upload, where we explore pervasive and emerging technologies and their influence and impact on society.
In this series, we upload direct to you information, opinions, and insights from thought leaders, experts, and creatives from Austin and beyond.
They'll share their perspectives through conversations, interviews, debates, discussion, and more.
I'm Jay.
I'm John.
And I'm Julie, and we co-produce the upload for the Austin Forum on Technology and Society.
I'm Jay Boisseau, and I'm the director of the Austin Forum on Technology and Society, and today we're here with Amber Gunst, the CEO for the Austin Technology Council. Austin has lots of tech organizations, but ATC is easily Austin's premier consortium for established technology companies that want to continue growing. Thanks for joining us today, Amber.
Thank you, Jay.
Well, we're very excited to talk to you today about big tech companies, and in particular, how to grow them, how to nurture them, how to help them scale, and why that is a good thing, but a hard thing to do, and what are some of the risks and cautions, and finally, what does it really take to get big, and how can people get help in learning how to get there? So that's the pathway for today. Are you ready to get going?
I am ready.
Great. Well, first, let's start with what Austin Technology Council is. So can you describe what it is and what it does and why it's needed?
So Austin Technology Council, which was formed as the Austin Software Council in 1992, but rebranded in 2002 as the Austin Technology Council to encompass all forms of technology, is a business association that focuses on technology companies, their growth, their ability to scale, their ability to attract and retain the best talent. And also it's focused on helping to grow the Austin community as a whole.
So how is it different than say like a Chamber of Commerce?
Well, and that's a great question. I used to work for the Austin Chamber of Commerce, so I have a full understanding of how they're different. The Austin Chamber of Commerce is focused on all aspects of commerce within the 5-county community of surrounding Austin. That includes Bastrop, Williamson, Caldwell, and Hayes County, along with Travis. And they focus on economic development, but their focus is going to be everywhere from a sandwich shop to a hospital system to a brand new startup to Dell and everyone in between. And so they encompass every aspect of business, whether it's manufacturing or somebody's new dress shop that just opened, where Austin Technology Council is focused specifically on technology companies and the companies who exist to support technology companies.
That's right. So you have technology companies and you have services companies where those services companies provide services for tech companies.
Yeah, and we actually look at them as solution providers. So, when you're looking at companies that provide solutions for technology companies, whether it's through staffing, legal aspects to help protect their intellectual property, or it's people helping them find where they can grow into in their next workspace. Those are all members of ATC as well.
So it's not just that it's like a subset of a Chamber of Commerce for tech companies. It's a subset in the nature of the companies, but it has different programs too, right? Because tech companies have some very different needs from other types of companies.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I worked for the Chamber, we put on about 100 events a year. And that's to encompass all aspects of business within the Austin community. To just say we're going to put on 60 to 70 technology-focused events a year is now going to blow that event space up for them. So where an organization like Austin Technology Council exists and thrives and provides benefit for our members is through those programs, and it's through the ability to bring thought leadership and bring in experts to talk about all aspects of it, whether you are looking for ways to finance your company into $100 million to $1 billion revenue company, or you are looking at some guidance in how to get through those earliest stages of being post-revenue.
So you just mentioned some revenue numbers. And so can you give us an example of the range of the size of the companies that are members of Austin Technology Council?
Absolutely. So 65% of our membership falls within the revenue stream of $2 million to $120 million. 5% of our membership falls somewhere below $2 million in revenue, and 30% of our membership exceeds $120 million in revenue.
So you have some very large tech companies. Can you name some of those? And I assume they're not all just Austin-based tech companies. These are national and global.
No, absolutely. So Google, is a longtime member of ATC. Indeed is a longtime member. Intel as well. Most recent success story in Austin is SailPoint. And not only are we fortunate enough to have them as a member, but Mark McLean sits on the board as our chair. And we're fortunate as well to have companies like Spreadfast and BigCommerce who are members also.
So you have a lot of mid-size, large, and very large companies. Mm-hmm. But ATC is not really for startups, right? I mean, we have a lot of startup support organizations in town, and it seems like everybody has a startup as either their main gig or side gig. But ATC is not really for startups, right?
Well, that's not exactly true, because startup is about as commonly used as a term as I'm a human being. And so a lot of times when people say they're interested in working with startups, or they want to meet startups, or they work for a startup, my first question is, so explain to me what your definition of a startup is. So you've got a startup where they've just closed a significant round of funding. So anywhere between a seed round of $1 million to an A round to $2 million and above. And that is the ability to give them a position to have real problems. And then you've got companies who, 10 to 12 to 15 years in are still calling themselves startups, because that's the way they best attract their talent. So we are focused on startups, but we're focused on post-revenue startups. Companies that have either launched their product, they have customers, they have revenue generating, or they are after a post-significant round of funding, where what happens with these companies is they start to experience growing problems. They're hiring employees, they are now dealing with money and fiduciary responsibilities. They've got operational issues they didn't have before. They're probably looking at taking out a lease somewhere, and they're moving out of a co-working space. So they need us at that point, because our programming is really designed and developed around helping companies get beyond those very, very early years.
So you help small companies become large. It's just that maybe they don't even go to you or they're not appropriate for your services until they either have some significant funding or some revenue, or in other words, they're more than two kids with a PowerPoint deck, 10 lines of code, and a really good idea.
Exactly. And the reason that we do that, and I refer to this all the time in the perfect example of, you'd never send a 5-year-old in to be Gordon Ramsay's sous chef. There are just certain things that are going to happen in that kitchen and be said that are going to be over their head. Now, there's that occasional rare 5-year-old who's going to get it, but it's rare, and it's the occasional. It's not the everyday. And there are a lot of early stage startups that I've worked with, that I've mentored, that I've met with and had conversations with, and advised them on getting involved with some of those early stage accelerator and incubator programs to help them get beyond the, I have an idea, I have a few lines of code, and I feel like I've got something, to I actually do physically have something now, and people are buying it, and I'm hiring people.
Okay, so you've got a company. Mm-hmm. And you're post-revenue, or at least post-significant funding, and you want to learn how to grow. So you approach ATC, and what do you do for them? How do you help them take these next steps? What are the programs or services? How do you help them become bigger and better than they are?
Well, first of all, we need to know where they are. And once we have that established, there's a lot of different programs and events and things that we've put together that help and assist them. Just being part of our community and coming out to our events and meeting other members gives them the opportunity to, expand their wheelhouse. A lot of times I see with tech executives, they are so busy growing and scaling their business that they don't actually look outside of what's going on within the 10 or 12 people that surround them on a daily or weekly or monthly basis. So it gives them an opportunity to meet other people and expand their ideas and figure out how else they can sell and promote their work. We also have our leadership dinners, which give them an opportunity to send their director to CEO level individuals out to take part in programming that's going to give them good ideas. We recently had a dinner just talking about sales and marketing and how those two teams can sync a company or make a company thrive based on how well they're communicating with each other. And I've been in a lot of companies as a salesperson where the marketing people weren't listening to me. And truth is, I really wasn't listening to them either. So, it's the reality of it. You get into your corners, and it was a very, very active and lively group in there. But we've also had conversations on how to use finance as a marketing tool, which I don't think anybody does really realize how important finance is from a marketing perspective when you're going out for fundraising and investment.
So you have events, and the events sounds like they're of different types. So some of them are networking events to meet other people, other C-level people or other directors. Some of them sound like maybe almost training-oriented events?
Yeah,
educational
absolutely.
events?
A lot of what we do is educational. We actually launched a roundtable series this year. So we created a Women in Tech roundtable because it just kind of sucks sometimes to be a woman in business, and especially when you work for a tech business. I've heard horror stories of women, from everything from somebody finding out they were pregnant and saying, oh, well, I guess you're not going to be with us much longer, to, women being asked out on dates by their clients or by their coworkers, or women just being expected to make the coffee at the office meeting. And I had a boss years ago who asked me to make coffee, and I said, well, would you rather have brown water or mud? Because I don't drink coffee and it's not going to taste very good. So, so we address situations like that, but it's how to negotiate your salary. How to negotiate maternity leave, because that is a reality that comes up. We're having one in September where it's understanding your financial obligations for your insurance and the legal aspects of not having the correct insurance for your business. And really, that's probably something we should do a full dinner on, not just for women, but for everyone, because a lot of companies don't understand that. And then we also have a sales tech roundtable, which, it's not for networking. It is because there are really, really bad sales managers out there. And I'm not talking about the ones who scream and yell. I'm talking about the ones who just phone it in and don't really care about what's going on with their teams. I worked for more of those bosses than I ever care to have worked for in my career. And, I hired a sales manager recently, and my criteria was you need to care about the people who work for you and you need to want to see them succeed. If you can't do those two things, I don't care how good you are, you're not going to work for me. Awesome.
So you give mentoring advice and have people give mentoring advice to some of these members as well, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about that? I mean, I think people think once they grow a big company, maybe they don't need mentors anymore, but mentoring is a lifelong thing, really, right?
Oh, gosh. If you don't have a mentor, you're probably failing and you just don't know it yet, because no one has been nice enough to tell you. So I'm a huge advocate for mentoring. I think it's incredibly important. We're actually relaunching our mentoring program. We had a beta test of it last year, so we're doing the official launch here this fall. And it's really, the idea around it is to take someone from a company who has, 10 employees all the way up to 1,000 employees, and pairing them with a senior leader from another company to help them figure out what to do in their career from a hard skill and a soft skill aspect. But what I always found beneficial was having mentors outside of my company who would say, hey, Amber, there are brown spots in every yard. And if that yard doesn't have a brown spot, it's probably artificial turf, and it's artificial turf for a reason. And you probably don't want to go there. So, I think it will help with employee retention. It helps with employee growth. It helps people figure out a career path, because companies these days, they just don't do a good job helping people figure out career paths. And that's where I think they're seeing a lot of attrition for their employees.
So who in a company that's a member of ATC can come to your events? Can anyone in that company come to your events? Or do you have events for the C-suite and events for the directors and managers and events for different layers in the company, different layers on the org chart, different types of jobs like sales-oriented training and marketing-oriented training and maybe therapy, I think, to get the sales and marketing people to work better together? How are your events structured in terms of the different roles within a company?
So we focus on the 5 areas of disciplines for all companies. So the executive leadership, operations and finance, HR and recruiting, sales and marketing, and of course, engineering and product development. And the majority of the content that we create for our leadership dinners and many of our other formalized events that happen during the lunch hour or during the evening are going to be designed for director to CEO level. However, that does not prohibit anyone from our member companies attending. We've had several employers send their employees to our events because they feel like they're going to learn something, and they've got these people on a path to reach into manager or director roles, and they want them to learn a little bit more about what they should know in their particular area of discipline.
Okay, so it sounds like you have companies of varying sizes, from even startup, but startup with funding or revenue and a decent number of staff, to very large scale, national scale, global scale. And you have educational activities and networking events of various types for the various different roles within those companies. So would you say that you have something really for virtually any kind of tech company?
We absolutely do. And, we're not the type of organization that would say, oh, we just want to focus on this or we just want to focus on that. I come from Michigan, and I tell people all the time I moved here in 2009 because I finally went through the last deep, dark recession that I ever wanted to go through. And I've been through more recessions than most people can count. And I remember moving here and sitting down with Dave Porter, who was the former SVP of Economic Development for the Chamber of Commerce. And he was boo-hooing about our 6.78% unemployment rate at the time. And I started laughing out loud in this man's office, and I just met him, and I had started the day before, and he said, well, what's so funny about that? And I said, I'm from Muskegon, Michigan. The unemployment rate up there is over 14%. You have a really good story to tell. And I want that to continue for Austin. So if you're a tech company in this community, if you are a company who focuses on providing solutions to tech companies in this community, I want to help you. And I know that through ATC, I can. So if companies are interested and they want to come out and they want to put some effort into it, then absolutely. The companies who are not going to benefit from our membership are the ones who are going to write us a check and not show up for anything, not take advantage of our member portal on our website, and not really do anything at all. Those are probably the only companies I can't help, because I'm kind of like Muhammad. I can take you to the mountain. I can show you the best path. I can even help you carry your luggage up that mountain, show you the best places to stop and take a picture. I cannot physically make you go up that mountain.
Got
Does
it.
that make sense?
Yeah, I got
Okay.
it. All right. So you've mentioned something a few times about how you help these companies and about how they participate in mentoring, and I love hearing all that. Tech booms cause some challenges for the community as a whole sometimes, and we're experiencing that here in Austin. The two primary social issues right now are affordable housing and transportation. And at some level, and I'm part of this tech community, and I, with some guilt, I revel in this tech boom, but I understand that our tech boom success has caused a lot of pressure on housing prices and on the transportation infrastructure. So how do you think this booming tech sector that's benefiting from everything here, how can they help with those kinds of issues, or can they help with those kinds of issues?
Well, we live in Austin, and we've got two varying different groups in Austin. We've got old Austin, who wants to keep it weird and doesn't want anybody to move here. And
it's too late for that.
And it's too late. As I point out.
It's funny, they talk about being the best live music city, the best place to move, the most fun city, the best barbecue, the best breakfast tacos, all of which is true, of course. But you can't brag about all that and then not expect people to want to move here and partake in that. It's a beautiful city. It's a fun city. The people are nice here. The standard of living is great. We're going to grow.
Yeah.
But the tech sector still places large pressure because of their higher wages than most of the other sectors. So but maybe that's just the nature of being an in-demand place to live in a capitalist economy. Is there anything the tech sector, though, can do to help mitigate the problems of its booming success?
Well, I think when you look at the gentrification that's happening in Austin, when you look at the 36,000 people who are not fit for the 44,000 jobs that are open, tech needs to do more.
I just want to make sure, 36,000 people that are unemployed, 44,000 jobs waiting to be filled.
Yes,
right?
in Austin.
In this, okay.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of those are tech jobs.
Right.
And I think it's on the shoulders of tech, and it's on the shoulders of the entire community to come up with solutions of how we help people get employed. That helps to take care of things like the affordability in housing. If you know how to make better money, if you have a better skill set, if you have better training, if you have a better education, and that education could be anything. I helped a guy who was homeschooled get a job as a systems admin, and he had never stepped into a college, let alone went to college. but he taught himself how to be a systems admin. If you look outside of the box, and the box is the typical hiring profile of you have to have a CS degree, you have to have so many years experience, you have to have gone to these particular schools, you have to have this background. There might be a kid somewhere in Far East Austin right now who's sitting at home tinkering around with a computer, figuring out how to do it, who might not finish high school, who might not end up in college, but probably knows a lot more about coding and fixing computers and everything else than I'll ever know in my life. And I'm the CEO of the Austin Technology Council. So I think we need to be a little bit more open to the availability of our workforce and being able to train them, to quit saying to, recruiters and HR managers, I need you to find a unicorn with a purple squirrel tattoo on it candidate for me. If you lost Joe and Joe knew how to do these 15 different things that he learned over the 3 to 5 years he was with your company, you're looking to rehire Joe. Joe doesn't exist out there in another person.
I couldn't agree more. I worry about all these algorithms that are making it easier and easier to sort through resumes and how they're being trained. And I just hope that they're being trained to look for potential and aptitude and not check boxes of skills. Because
They're not. And I know that for a fact because back in 2016, I was looking for another job, and a former chamber member who had told me, if you are ever looking for a job, I want to hire you. I want you on my team. I saw on LinkedIn that his company was hiring, and I didn't want to do the thing like, oh, I know him, I'm just going to email him directly because he's the CEO, and you go past the hiring manager and the HR managers and it just doesn't look good. So I thought, I'm just going to go through this. He's said that he wants to hire me. Within 4 hours, I got a bounce back saying, sorry, you're just not a fit for the role. Now, when I ran into him after I found another job, he's like, why didn't you ever call me? I wanted to hire you. You know I wanted to hire you. I said, I applied for your company. I was told that I wasn't a fit for the role. He said, what do you mean you're not a fit for the role? I wrote that job description based on what I know about you. So that algorithm stuff, it does not work because it's not looking at people. You don't have people looking at people. So I think, when you're looking at tech, when you're looking at the fact that there are some roles that you need very specific skills for, be realistic about those very specific skills that you need. And I'm a former recruiter, so this is just me offering free advice. If you have a role where you could provide some training to somebody, take a risk on bringing in somebody a little bit newer that maybe doesn't have all of the skills you're looking for, so that you can have your recruiting team actually laser focused on those roles where you absolutely do need those really highly skilled candidates.
I could not agree more. I've probably hired, probably 300 or 400 people in my life, and I've hired many people who didn't have exactly the right skills for the job, but it was clear they had all the potential and aptitude and other relevant skills that would translate. Maybe they had programming experience, but in different languages than the job would require. And technology is a fast-changing field, so you really need to hire fast learners that have the right technical aptitudes, but not necessarily the exact skill at that day. They're going to be learning new things 2 years into the job anyway, 1 year into the job, so hire rapid learners. But it's not just the algorithms, it's even people. I've hired people that when it became time for them to hire people, they looked at the resumes and said, oh, this person doesn't have all the right skills that I'm looking for. And I've looked at them and said, did you have all the right skills that checked all the right boxes when I hired you? And they look sheepish and say, no. And I said, well, that worked out pretty well, didn't it? So be more open-minded. I completely agree with that. How can these companies, though, help with that? You said there are 36,000 people in Austin that are looking for jobs. There's 44,000 tech jobs available, and I'm not naive enough to believe that all 36,000 could fulfill 36,000 of those 44,000, but some certainly could. So how does ATC work with companies to help ensure that social civic responsibility?
One of the things that we did last December was we hosted a lunch with ACC. And we brought out not HR managers, not recruiters, but we brought out the CTOs and the VPs and the directors of engineering for our member companies. And we made them sit down with ACC people at tables at a luncheon. We had no formal program other than me giving statistics about how expensive it is to go get a 4-year degree. And we talked about the fact that we didn't want to talk about the students that were getting 2 years at ACC and were going to go off to a 4-year college to finish their degree. We were talking about people who went back and got recertified because maybe they hadn't been in the workforce for a while because they'd been raising a family. Or maybe they went and they got that theater arts degree and realized they weren't going to make money doing that. Or the low income folks who ACC is a gateway school out of poverty and low income living. And for them, if you have never had your parents make more than $30,000 to $40,000 a year combined, even, you're not going to really be comfortable taking on $100,000 to $300,000 in student loan debt because you don't know if you're ever going to pay that off. And it's a scary thing. And it's scary for the entire family, where going to school for 2 years at ACC, it's going to cost them less than $10,000 to do.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's something they can afford to do. They can do it while still having a full-time job somewhere. They can, and they can really get the skills that they need. So we brought those folks in. None of the employers that were there had any idea that ACC had an intern program. None of them understood that they could actually work with the college to help come up with curriculum that they needed in order to hire candidates. Now, there was one company there that they're doing really, really highly technical stuff, and they're still in their early enough stages that they need the highest technical talent. But they said, when we get to a point where we need to start hiring in mass, we'll talk to you, but right now we can't. Most of the companies there met with at least the intern program for ACC.
Great. Well, I'm really glad to hear that you're working with companies not only to help them take care of their own companies, which is hugely important, but to have them help take care of their city as well and their community as well. So that's great. I want to ask you one last big question. How do you see the tech sector landscape in Austin changing? Do you see any fundamental changes, or just what gradients do you see? I mean, 40 years ago, I guess, is when the tech boom really started with Sematech and MCC and Texas Instruments and IBM all doing things sort of right around 1970. And it's been a steep upward growth curve ever since. We've certainly diversified from just being semiconductor in the early days to a much more broad tech sector. What do you see next? What do you see the next big thrust areas being, and how do you see that shaping the city going forward?
It's really interesting. We're seeing with Uber bringing in autonomous vehicles and Cap Metro getting into autonomous vehicles, which I'm a huge fan of because I want less people in their cars. But I realize people need to get
They're going
places.
To be texting on their phone anyway, rather than not be driving at the same time.
Exactly.
Right.
I'd get so much more done if a self-driving car drove me
than, yeah.
And I'm a big fan of taking Lyft and Uber, but I don't really... I don't have time to have a conversation with somebody in the car, but I also don't want to be rude.
You sit in the back then. If you sit in the back with your phone out right away, they usually don't talk to you.
Jay, I'm a Midwesterner. I have to have conversations with people, and I'm in sales, so it's just I was in sales for years. I usually sit up front
to have that conversation.
Yeah.
But
it's it was ingrained into me. You just talk to people. So, but I think the autonomous vehicle aspect is on the rise, and I think that's coming to Austin. I think the interesting aspect of the aerospace and the rocketry that's coming in, I mean, you've got GE Aviation here, you've got, rocket forming all over Central Texas and Houston.
Firefly's back in business,
Firefly,
right?
I read that they were back in business. I could have been wrong. But you've got a lot of things there. I think some of the smaller semiconductor companies, we've got a member called Virago Technologies that's doing a lot of stuff in aerospace. You've got a company like Abaco Systems that's doing a lot with the DoD in the aerospace area. I think those are going to be our next big areas to take a look at, and I think it'd be interesting from the CPG standpoint, these companies who are creating these products for consumers to use and how they're using technology to expand what they're doing. I, mentored a couple of companies out of Mass Challenge that were in the CPG space, but they were utilizing technology as a way to get their product out to their consumers much faster. So it's interesting that, you've got companies like Kendra Scott, you've got companies like Yeti, you've got companies like Tiff Streets who are building their own back office functions. And I think that's really exciting too, because it gives them an opportunity to expand and do more. I mean, you look at Maggie Louie's Confections and the amazing work that they're doing. I mean, outside of the fact that it's beautiful chocolate, they can get it places.
I noticed you mentioned a cookie company and a chocolate company and a
I'm
company
hungry
that keeps
right
your
now.
beer cold. And okay.
Yeah. It's, but that's the CPG aspect, it's the consumer products. It's, and most consumers, the thing they consume the most is food and beverage. And so seeing how great those companies have done, but also seeing how they're adapting technology to their companies as well is really exciting.
So I noticed you did not mention health in that set.
Mm-hmm.
And even more shockingly to me, you didn't mention blockchain in that set.
So let's talk about health and blockchain.
All right.
So we just did a dinner in June on the convergence of healthcare and technology. And it was really interesting. We had some great speakers out there. And one of our speakers was Jean Ann Booth from Unaliware. And, Jean Ann is amazing. And she was talking about the struggles in trying to...
Is Unaliware the ones that make the jewelry?
The watch.
No,
the watch for grandma.
Okay.
It's the smartwatch for grandma. And she made this for her mother who has macular degeneration. And she wanted her to have this watch to provide safety aspects for her as she was still trying to live independently. So from that, it's a healthcare-based thing. This is something that, Medicaid should be interested in getting for seniors. This is something I will probably get for my parents in the next coming years as they're, getting older. But it's, it's a safety device and it's specifically designed for senior citizens. But her trying to get funding through Medicare or anything like that is such a nightmare that she's just not going to go down that road. So healthcare is amazing and it's wonderful. There's so many cool things. My cousin, Heather Brown, is the vice president of development for a company called HeartFlow. And I swear all 23 first cousins brain power went into her. She's got 7 different patents on heart valves. And they've got an office here in Austin, and she and I have been talking about getting them involved. But she's shared with me the struggle that they're dealing with. And so healthcare is exciting. There's lots of great things that are happening there, but it just takes a long time because you've got to get so many people buying into it. And you've got this huge, massive, antiquated system that needs to buy into it. Now, Dell Medical School coming into Austin, I worked for the chamber when the PAC was going on to get that approved. And I pounded the pavement to talk to all of our members to support and vote for it. So I'm a huge fan of it. I think that great things are going to come out of it. I just think it's going to be a little bit more slow moving just because that's the nature of healthcare. And as for blockchain, my former boss, Barbara Brunner, is working for Funware and they're coming out with FunCoin. And I know blockchain is a huge thing for Austin Forum. It's something everybody's excited to see. But it's the one area, as I talk to our members and I talk to other people in the community, they still can't fully wrap their head around it. And I think Austin Forum does a great job of providing events and program to help people understand it. But it's the thing that I think people are just a little hesitating about. They want to see somebody else do it and be really successful at it first. And in order for somebody to do it and be really successful at it first, it's going to have to be a big, massive company that gets into it, utilizes it, makes it a real thing before everybody jumps on board.
Yeah, there's a great organization in town. And you referenced an event we had. The Austin Forum had an event on blockchain, and we had 300 people there. And
I was there.
We promoted the Austin Blockchain Collective, which is the group that's actually dedicated to blockchain companies. Mm-hmm. And there's a huge number of blockchain companies in town. And so now it's probably, whereas it used to be you can't swing a stick without hitting a musician, now it's you can't swing without hitting somebody's in a blockchain startup or something. Mm-hmm. But what I really wanted to know is, are any of these blockchain companies, the ones that are blockchain focused, are any of them big enough yet that they are approaching you about membership in Austin Technology Council?
We're talking to a few companies and we've got a few of them that are interested in what we're doing. However, a lot of them are being smart. They're in stealth mode until they're really ready to go out and start generating that revenue, which is not typical revenue. They're not getting US dollar bills. They're being
You're
a little
thinking of
hesitating.
the cryptocurrency companies.
Yeah, the cryptocurrency.
Now, I'm thinking blockchain more broadly than that. Blockchain for other purposes. So, for smart contracts, for example, it's not a currency-based blockchain company, but are any of those kind of companies approaching you yet?
Not a whole lot. we're open to any company and any company having a conversation with us. However, again, a lot of those companies, they're still pretty much in stealth mode because blockchain, even though it's something that you all have been talking about a lot and we've been learning a lot about, not everybody's 100% on board with using it. So I think they want to test it out. I think they want to make sure they've got revenue and that it's sustaining revenue before they start entering into that space.
All right. And now I'm going to use interviewer's prerogative and ask about my favorite area, artificial intelligence.
Okay.
So are there many AI companies that have joined Austin Technology Council?
Yeah, actually we have several. So ThinkBridge Software is a member. Valkyrie AI, who's getting a lot of press, is out there. And we are actually doing a dinner with Valkyrie AI in October to talk about how to use artificial intelligence in your business. Instead of sitting around and talking about how cool it is and how awesome it is and how much fun it is, it's the how do you make money with it? How do you make your customers have better experiences with it? How do you make your employees have a better experience with it? You know, I like to sit around and talk about how cool stuff is as well, but 20 years in business development, you better tell me how I'm going to make money with that.
Yeah, I talk to a lot of customers on that topic as well. And a lot of them are we know we need it because we read about it all the time. And we read these cool stories about what it did for somebody else. That's not what we're doing. So we're trying to figure out how to use it. And we encourage them to, think about your business problems, same as before. Mm-hmm. And let's talk about which business problems, once we teach you a little bit about what AI is, we can try to map it to business problems and see if it makes sense. Do you have enough data? Do you have enough good data to develop and train a model and to have any hope of optimizing that product or developing that product's capabilities in such a way that there is a business value? But
and it's actually understanding what it is. We're in a situation where I see this all the time. Every event I go to, there's always a panel and people saying, does anybody have a question about this really random thing I just brought up? And you see all the men in the room sit there and go, oh, no, I don't have any questions. And all the women are busy scribbling things down. And the men are nodding because they don't want to look stupid by asking a question. And the women are scribbling it down because they're going to go home and Google it. And so,
I think I'm supposed to be offended by this. I'm
supposed to be offended by it as well. But the reality is that I sit down and I write acronyms down and I write things down on pieces of paper or in my phone as well so that I can go home and Google it later. It's just how we are. Now, that doesn't mean everybody. When you come to an ATC dinner, there's lots of questions and answers. There's lots of people raising their hand. But I think when we get into rooms where there's 200 to 300 people, no one wants to raise their hand and look like they don't know what they're talking about, especially when everybody else is nodding. And so, what I'd like to see is people actually explaining what stuff is and not just saying, oh, does anybody have questions? Does everybody know what I'm talking about? Because everybody's going to nod because nobody wants to look like they don't. And brave people will raise their hand and say, actually, I don't know what you're talking about. I wish I was brave all the time, but sometimes I just sit there and nod. I think like everyone does. But, I think when experts are standing up or sitting on a panel and they're talking about something, they need to actually explain it as if they're talking to 5-year-olds. Go back to 5-year-olds. Everything is based on a 5-year-old. If you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, you shouldn't be explaining it to anyone.
I think deep neural networks might be challenging to explain to a 5-year-old, but I totally get the point of what you're saying there.
It might, but if you feel like you're talking so far above a 5-year-old that completely. They don't understand that you're actually speaking English words to them, that's a problem.
Yeah, when I try to explain AI to people, I usually start with, I apologize if this is too simplistic and you already know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to go to the very beginning just to make sure we're all on the same page. And they generally say, no, I appreciate it. Go ahead and go to the very beginning. So
yeah, because you're giving them the ability to admit without feeling stupid that they don't know about it. And that's the trouble that I think a lot of panelists and a lot of thought leaders get into is, I'm presuming because you're all sitting here, you already know everything. So now I'm just going to start talking. It's like, but wait, I know what the word artificial means and I know what the word intelligence means, but what do those two things mean together?
Actually, I just did a podcast with Byron Reese and he talked about we can't really define artificial intelligence in a precise consensus way because we still don't have a consensus definition of intelligence. And
true.
Does the artificial refer to the intelligence being artificial or to the devices that implement the intelligence being? So we don't even have a precise definition of which part of the system is artificial in that, much less a precise definition of intelligence. So
Yeah.
it's a complicated topic, but
It is, but it's an interesting topic.
Yeah. So thank you very much for coming today. I want to ask if you have any final thoughts or takeaways that you really want to make sure our listeners understand and can act on after they hear this podcast.
I think looking back at our topic about startups and where you are in that startup aspect, and, the thing I keep hearing from people outside of Austin is you're such a scrappy little startup city. And we are. But we are also an established technology city. We're an established business city. We have companies of all different shapes, all different sizes, all different technology aspects, and all different opportunities. And so I think the thing that I would like people in Austin to do is talk about what they do. Talk about their companies. Talk about their vision for their future. The question that I ask every single person that I talk to when I'm talking about Austin Technology Council is, tell me where you want to see your business go. And it's surprising how many times I'm one of the first people that's asked them that question. It doesn't matter how long they've been in business. No one's asking that question because nobody's talking about where they want to go. So stealth mode is great when you are trying to figure it out. But once you get it figured out a little bit, get out of stealth mode, go out, be brave, be raw, be vulnerable, talk to people, because that's the only way you're going to learn. And that's the only way you're going to expand. And finally, don't sell out too early. If you have a valuation of $15 million and somebody's offering you $35 million, you probably have something worth $100 million. So keep working at it. Keep plugging away at it. Realize you're not just doing it for yourself. You're doing it for those people that took that risk and came in early to help you do it. It's those, that not the first 20 employees, but maybe the employee number 21 that you're doing it for. It's the ability to share that wealth and to share expertise and to really, really, really build something, and to not be a serial entrepreneur that kills one business after another, but a repeat entrepreneur who figures out a method to that madness of entrepreneurship and goes out there, keeps doing it over and over and over again. And if you've got a good idea and other people are telling you a good idea and those other people aren't your dad and your grandma, go do something with it. Don't just quit your day job up in 5 seconds, but start working on it. Plug away, stay up till 1 a.m, working on it. Find some other crazy people who want to get in there and do it with you. And if Austin Technology Council can help you, let me know.
Great. Thank you very much, Amber. And I want to encourage our listeners, your company, especially if you're a large company, is probably a member of Austin Technology Council. So even if you don't live in Austin, you may be able to take advantage of their member portal. So check them out. Thank you very much, Amber.
Thank you. You have a good day, Jay.
You too.
Thanks for listening to the Austin Forum Upload. You can listen to additional episodes and check out a schedule of our monthly in-person events at austinforum.org. The Upload is a production of the Austin Forum on Technology and Society, a nonprofit organization here in Austin, Texas.